A suspect in a possible stolen motorcycle case fled into the parking lot of an apartment complex in Los Angeles after a high-speed chase. Several patrol cars surrounded the building in search of the suspect.
Prepared helmet and jacket. That vehicle, that bike that you see right there, is making his way now in the westbound lanes of the 210 freeway. It was on the surface streets for a little bit, but we were basically starting out almost in the Eagle Rock area and made its way out here to Pasadena, now turning around, coming back the other direction. Now you can clearly see that this motorcycle not driving too recklessly, which is a huge plus. My worry is basically for that rider, especially if it's stolen, because when you hear things like stolen motorcycle, you wonder, is this an experienced rider or not? That bike does seem to be kind of a little jerky, so I'm still not 100% on this person not being an experienced rider. As far as law enforcement, there's a helicopter above it. It's going to be Police 100. That is going to be part of the Glendale, Pasadena law enforcement community. And they did have ground units when it was on Colorado just moments ago, but now it's back on the freeway. I'm not sure if the California Highway Patrol is going to join the chase or not. Traffic, well, we definitely have a lot of it, but that might be a big plus for that motorcycle, or it may help that motorcycle get a little bit more distance between him and any of the law enforcement. Right now, though, it's basically just a motorcycle driving on the freeway. A lot of these folks that are passing and nearby it have no idea that this vehicle is wanted by law enforcement.
Behind him, at least from this vantage point, we know that there's an airship above tracking this cyclist, but not a lot of black and white behind him. So people unsuspectingly riding down that freeway right there. But again, when you talk about the experience of a person trying to steal a motorcycle, you kind of have to know something about how to ride a bike like that, right?
Definitely, and in the past we've seen some of them where you clearly are watching that person struggling to drive that motorcycle. This one, it looks like it's definitely a street bike, and as you can see, it's missing a lot of the cowlings on it, and maybe on some kind of stunt bike or something like that. Let me get out of that doubler, and you can see it actually starting to pick up some speed. We'll bring up the speedometer for you guys as well, so you can follow along at home. But it's not crazy high speeds. We're not seeing triple digits. We're not seeing him zipping past a lot of these other cars on the freeway. He's basically just riding with traffic out here, which again kind of makes me believe that this person not that experienced with a motorcycle, and that might be where the stolen bike comes into all that. And it also makes me a little bit more worried because an unexperienced rider, even at freeway or speeds or traffic speeds, it's still a very dangerous situation. One wrong move and colliding with something. And now we're getting some more information from Melissa at our desk, who's always on it, is saying that it's had no license plates on it, and that's the reason why they tried to pull it over originally. Hearing that there is one black and white nearby, I don't want to lose that motorcycle, but you can see one of them right there. That is a Glendale unit. So that, you know what, honestly, that law enforcement may just be driving back to their location. They might have been told, don't chase this guy. Just come back to Glendale, and that might be what's happening right now.
Yeah, at the same time, you wonder, this person is definitely prepared with a helmet, if that's the case, and obviously safety is a precaution. The person was stopping at traffic lights, as we saw, so not too dangerous in terms of speeds as well. So I don't know if he's experienced or not. Maybe a little bit of experience on a motorcycle like that, but as you mentioned, when you pushed in, that the motorcycle is very unique and different. It looks outfitted a certain way, right, with no license plate either. It's not your typical motorcycle that you see day to day.
Yeah, I would venture to say this might be some sort of stunt bike or a bike that they bring to events or maybe ride around illegally. Clearly, that's what's happening right now. No license plate, I definitely believe that. And that was the original reason. Now what we're getting information from our assignment desk, that was the original reason for them trying to pull it over. But that driving technique, if this is a stunt bike and that would be a stunt rider, I'm doing the air quotes, you can't see me, but if that was a stunt rider, we'd be seeing a lot lot more aggressive moves, a lot faster, and, you know, basically zipping in and out of traffic. This bike basically just keeping the speed limit, and the way that rider is posturing and what I'm watching that rider do, I venture to say not that experienced of a rider, which makes me a little nervous. I don't want to see anybody get hurt. I don't want to see that rider get hurt, but you can see it right there, 60 miles an hour. He's not even, you know, basically just doing the speed limit, picking up a little bit. And and I'm hearing right now that they're getting information from the PD ship above it that there are still ground units behind him, and they are still following him, and this is still an active pursuit now on the 134.
Yeah, it's interesting to see if whether or not this driver is just out for a joyride, kind of saw that stunt bike and hopped on and took it for a ride now, or whether it's an experienced rider, as you mentioned, that would be doing more high speeds and tricks and weaving in and out. So we don't know, obviously, but the original want from the Glendale PD is the fact that this bike, this motorcycle, does not have a license plate. And so perhaps they tried to stop this person, pull him over, but didn't stop, and then this pursuit began. So right now we have been watching this for a few minutes at least, but this has been going on for at least 10, 15 minutes or so, and it was going in the area of Pasadena and Old Town around Colorado. You said this driver went through Eagle Rock, but now on the 210 freeway or 134, where are we exactly right now?
134, we're coming up on the 2, or we're going to be getting very close to the 2. I'm looking out the window, and I can tell you that either we're just passing it or this is it right here. So we're right by the 2 freeway, and I believe that actually is the borderline. So we're definitely in Glendale. There is no doubt about that. These speeds continuing about just, you know, now we're starting to see some higher numbers. There's a lot less traffic out there, but you can see this rider kind of posturing, doing that, you know, like go, 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 like he's egging on a horse. Looks like we're getting over. This might be an attempt for an off-ramp, but at these high speeds, I just worry about that rider more than anything else. There seems to be a black vehicle very close behind it, and I think that is an unmarked law enforcement, or it is marked. You can see some flashing lights right there. So it's a difficult call for law enforcement. They don't want to see that rider injured, and they don't want to push that rider past his skill set. But they definitely want to bring this thing to an end, and they definitely are making themselves known. That's a really sharp turn. This is what I'm talking about. This is not an experienced rider. That is not an experienced rider. And you can see the motorcycle, the law enforcement just trying to get up close to it, just to kind of like, just maybe bump it just a little bit, especially when it's going slow. Wrong side of the road right now. Hopefully it gets back onto the right side of the road. But that move right there, that told me all I needed to know. This is definitely not an experienced rider, which makes this so much more dangerous for that person.
Yeah, in all scenarios, what we're looking at here is the driver of that motorcycle, the rider there, certainly at a disadvantage when it comes to any type of safety precaution, because as you know, look how exposed that person is riding a motorcycle or this type of stunt bike. Any collision, any fall, any kind of action, you know, with someone else, that person is going to get hurt. There's no doubt about it, because anyone else in a vehicle or otherwise would be protected, right, by a car. But in this case, that rider is so exposed, going so fast, and now driving very recklessly because they don't really know how to control that motorbike, and clearly going on residential streets right now is very dangerous.
And and you saw that too, just a little bit of that wiggle in that rear wheel. You know, every time that something like any move that this person is making, besides even in the straight lines, I am really, really concerned for that rider's safety, and of course the public as well. That a heavy motor that's a couple 100 pounds moving along at even 40, 50 miles an hour definitely could injure somebody even in a vehicle, or take their life if it's a pedestrian. So this is definitely very dangerous for everybody involved. And again, we're probably never going to hear where or how this motorcycle came into this rider's possession, but it is definitely a very dangerous situation. Law enforcement, now this is going to be Glendale, I really don't know how they handle things like this or what their policies are, but that rider clearly not very familiar with riding a motorcycle, especially not one with that kind of power. And you can see that there are people in the roadway right there making these turns. I'm not sure if he knows where he's going or just picking random streets out here, because we're in very residential neighborhoods, and I'm keeping an eye out. There was actually a car backing out in this vehicle, and now we're coming up on a busy street, and those right turns, probably the best thing he could do. But that black vehicle that we see every now and then in the shot behind it, that is definitely law enforcement, and that officer doing what he can to keep the public safe and to bring this thing to an end safely. How he's going to do that, or she, we don't know. Hopefully this person is going to either run out of steam, run out of gas, or just make the wise decision like, okay, this is enough, I'm just going to stop.
Yeah, I'm wondering, I'm no expert on motorcycles or these type of motorbikes, how big the gas tank is on this, or perhaps if it's a kind of hybrid situation, but clearly less gas in the tank than a car, so how long can this motorist go for?
Oh, these bikes can go for a while if that thing has a full tank of gas or even 5 gallons in there. But look at how jerky the motions are. This is a rider that's not familiar with the gear pattern, not familiar with how to drive with clutch, and it really truly scares me. I know you hear a little chuckle in my voice, but that's the only thing I can do to calm myself. I'm just really worried that this is going to end poorly, or at least with some sort of injury. Coming underneath us right there, Skyfox is going to do a beautiful pirouette. Look at that. And you can see some of the other traffic as we did that wider shot. So he is not getting, dangerously close, yes, but desperately close, no. He seems to be keeping distance from all the other vehicles, which is probably the only thing he can do. But again, making wide turns, hard cuts right there. A lot of other vehicles that just might not see this person, and this rider not experienced enough to get out of the way or make those fast moves to keep himself safe.
Especially on those turns right there, you could definitely tell the lack of experience of this motorist on that motorbike, trying to make these turns, going really wide into the shared middle lane, and then trying to accelerate, kind of not knowing the capabilities of this vehicle and this motorbike, and kind of wobbly, as you mentioned, and jerky at times, but clearly a really dangerous situation right there, kind of going across lanes as we're watching, in this residential area. It's really concerning.
Like a 600? Yeah, definitely. I'm sorry about that. I was answering another question. The deal is I'm very hopeful that this rider will make his way maybe to a mall, maybe to some kind of parking garage, park that vehicle, park that bike, just get off of it, and just try to hide or do whatever they need to do that they think they can get away from law enforcement. Because the longer this bike is on the roadway, the more I am worried about an incident with it. There it is coming out the other side. And look at those wide cuts. If somebody was making a turn right there, that would have ended very poorly. And again, using all lanes, no respect for the direction of traffic, and add into the fact that not a very good rider. This is very dangerous.
It's very dangerous. And this person coming up close to the Glendale Galleria area, hopefully not going to involve more traffic and more innocent drivers not knowing what's happening, obviously seeing this motorbike going in and out of the lanes, weaving and making those wide turns, very dangerous. But also you wonder what the options are for police officers, how to stop this person. We obviously see a lot of pit maneuvers when it comes to vehicles and police chases like that in a pursuit of a vehicle, but in this case you can tell just how open and exposed the rider is, the driver of that motorbike, and how dangerous it could be, any type of maneuver. You saw that black vehicle behind him, that's a law enforcement official, tried to kind of cut off the motorcycle at one point as he was exiting the freeway, making a really wide turn, trying to kind of pit him. But you have to be so careful because of the fact that the driver's so exposed, only wearing a helmet, and any little move, any little fall, any little collision can really cause a lot of damage and injury.
Definitely, and that is, you know, you put into words all of my fears. I really mean that, Sandra. This thing is it just keeps going, and thank goodness it hasn't ended poorly. But still riding very erratically out here on these roadways, making our way in and out of the area. We're definitely still going to be. Now we're in Glazell Park, so LAPD might get involved with this. I'm not. And we have an LAPD ship actually over it right now. I don't know if they relieved Police 100, but you know, it's definitely wrong side of the road, and these higher speeds again. It's just so dangerous. And the most of that danger, like you said, is going to be for that rider. That rider is the one that's putting themselves in the biggest vulnerability for injury, and it just continues out here. But as far as law enforcement, that one law enforcement officer right there, you really got to give him props and really trying to do what he can to bring this to an end. And a lot of people might be like, oh, he's going to hurt that guy if he pushes him up against a curb or something like that. You know what? A skinned knee, a bruised ankle, compared to loss of life or just maybe even something like being a cripple, yeah, definitely to do what you need to do to bring this to an end. But right now that rider is still keeping law enforcement just far enough away. These speeds staying dangerously high for the rider's skill level. There's no doubt about that. And again, we just continue to watch them passing other vehicles, using the wrong side of the road, center lane, and even now running some red lights. It just adds up. The danger just clicking, yeah. And you just don't want this to end poorly.
Definitely escalating a little bit here, as we don't know the rider's intention, the driver's intention. Clearly, we never know. But this comes to mind. I am reminded watching this because we don't often see the pursuit of a motorcyclist, right? So I have to say some of the worst pursuits, though, have been the pursuits of a motorcyclist. They end in a very, very bad way. Specifically, one that comes to mind is when there is a collision at the end of a pursuit and that person goes flying. And clearly you know what I'm talking about. You've done and seen a lot of these pursuits over the years, and those are the most horrific accidents that we've seen, the pursuit of a motorcyclist. Especially depending on how it ends, right? It's never a good scene. So clearly we want to hope and, that nobody gets hurt in this case, but clearly they are taking every precaution, right? Giving him a little space, monitoring the situation, but also the public needs to be safe and make sure that this person stays off the road.
Yeah, definitely. And warning the public, again, look at this, wrong side of the road, this time really for no reason whatsoever. Just got onto the wrong side of the road and now picking up a little bit more speed. I don't think, sometimes, Sandra, we see these chases and you're like, okay, there's a destination. You just got that feeling like they're going somewhere, like they're going to go and they're, like I said, to a mall or to a house or a neighborhood where they're going to try to, run and hide. But this bike just seems to be driving. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme to reason there. And it may be because that rider might not even really know where they are. Getting into the bike lane right there, that, buddy, that bike lane is not for you. And, Lee said the no for all to stand up there as he went through that intersection because it was a little bit of a dip. But I haven't seen any kind of really just riding the bike correctly, and that might actually be a good thing. These motorcycles, they work with clutches, they do overheat, they have the same issues as vehicles, and especially if they're not being driven correctly. So maybe we might see something where the bike might just kind of give up. But again, right there, it doesn't look like it. Picking up 60 miles an hour, and we're on surface streets out here. And it looks like we're passing over the LA River, so maybe we're getting back over to the 5. If he gets back on the freeway, we'll see. But I just want to see this guy stop. That's it.
Right.
Get off the bike, give it up, and put their hands up and just call it a day.
Right. We always want a safe ending where nobody gets hurt, no injuries, no innocent people involved, and even the suspect or the driver at this point gets off the vehicle, off the motorbike safely. But clearly, as things escalate, you never know what happens. And under pressure, you never know what this person is thinking. So, Stu, do you see a lot of law enforcement, though, trailing this guy? Or is it just that one black vehicle?
you know what? I was kind of looking for him every now and then. They might have dropped out. We are well into Los Angeles right now. They're getting into downtown LA, Chinatown. It's just the LAPD ship, so there is no ground units right now. There are nobody on the ground chasing him. So basically, he is just running from his own demons. And, you know, that could be a good thing, because maybe if he's looking in his rearview mirror, he's not seeing the reds and blues, he's not hearing the sirens, he'll slow it down or think, okay, I've got enough distance between me and them that I can just get off this bike and do whatever I need to do. Definitely ran a red light right there. We're making our way into downtown, where, you know, today I got Dylan at the tiller of Skyfox, so I'm really kind of hopeful that we're going to be able to stay with it through downtown. Got another law enforcement, but basically going the other way. Let's see if he makes that U-turn. It does look, no, maybe not, because that's the thing too. A lot of times LAPD, they're going to look at something like this and they're going to weigh it. And policies, I don't know the policies. I know that it is up to their sergeant or watch commander, but for the most part, LAPD will let things go to keep everybody safe. And it looks like we're getting back onto the freeway, so we're not getting into the downtown area, but definitely a lot of traffic. And let's see what happens with this motorcycle and all this traffic.
A motorcyclist drove at dangerously high speeds during a high-speed chase on Wednesday afternoon, May 21st. The chase began in La Canada, Flintridge, and included the suspect speeding and erratic driving on freeways and major streets. By 12:45 p.m., the suspect was driving west on Highway 134, near the carpool lane, at speeds reaching 80 miles per hour. About 5 minutes later, the driver exited the freeway in the Glendale area and was seen driving in reverse and speeding on freeways in the area near North Jackson and E. Durand Streets. The suspect then began running red lights, swerving between cars, and attempting to evade the officer. The suspect continued speeding on freeways and cutting off cars in his path. At some point during the chase, the suspect began driving his motorcycle on the wrong side of the road.
Trying to stay in that center area, which may or may not be better, because if he's going to stay off to the right side, he has that possibility of somebody making a right turn. Going to be going right underneath us, Dylan, right underneath us. And again, picking up some speed. But right now, no law enforcement underneath him. They do have a helicopter above him, but, you know, that's the thing, too, is like a lot of times people are going to be like, oh, yeah, of course they're going to hear that helicopter. I have not seen this person with that helmet on. You got to think about that as well. Look up once. So I'm not sure why this person's still driving so erratically. I'm still very hopeful that it's something he's going to click and is going to be like, okay, I'm parking the bike. I'm on foot. I'm just going to try to hide. But right now, we can see it, keeping up those higher speeds, especially for downtown Los Angeles, and definitely kind of staying in that area where the government buildings are. You know, we're very close to City Hall, police headquarters, and things like that. So we're going to keep an eye on it. And again, you said it earlier, Sandra, he's basically just making loops out here. We're making big giant figure eights on these streets.
And I saw those pedestrians walking across the street having no idea what's happening, but the motorcyclist turned right in front of them. Thankfully, no one was hurt in that case. It wasn't too close a call, but you just wonder, you know, how much closer is he going to get? How much more erratic are those turns going to be as he's handling that motorcycle that he's not familiar with, it seems. The good thing is, and the unusual thing is, that he does have a helmet. So was this pre-planned? Was the helmet sitting there? A lot of questions here. You know, how did he start it up? Clearly, we don't know also how long this is going to go for. Does he have a full tank of gas? And where he's going at this point. But does he even know that he's being trailed? Maybe he thinks that he's free and clear and trying to figure out where to go. But,
he could.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like, it looks like he's making some decisions here. It looks like we actually pulled into an apartment building. This is going to be, what is the name of this? This is the one that caught fire a while ago. Picasso. Is it Picasso?
Oh,
I think it's the Picasso.
Okay.
And,
right by the freeway
just,
right there.
It just made a turn. Yeah, he made a turn into that parking garage. So I'm going to stay a little bit wider, not for problems of him being injured, but to see if I see anybody running through the courtyard areas or acting unusual. That motorcycle actually had a helmet. attached to it on the side. So I'm wondering, maybe there was just like we were talking about, just convenient that he was able to. And how did he get into that parking garage? I've ridden my bike past here many a times, and I know that these are, electric gates. So maybe it was just an opportunity. He saw it, opening, so he went ahead and jumped in there. But law enforcement definitely knows. LAPD is talking about it right now. They actually have some units nearby. I'm not sure what they're discussing over here, because I know for a fact that he wound up, he went into this building. But at any rate, we're going to keep an eye on it. And and see what law enforcement's going to do.
That's a huge complex. Easy for someone to hide, to get lost, to kind of, wait it out, if you will, right? There's so many places that that person can be to kind of escape, shall we say, from this situation, if in fact that motorcyclist went inside and is underneath of the parking structure right now. But a lot of black and whites around, but there's just so many places that this driver could escape to, run out from. We don't know if they're holed up in someone's apartment, because that complex is big.
Yes, very big. And if this person lives there and they know where they're going, or basically just put the bike somewhere and then made their way over to an apartment, there might be an opportunity to review some sort of surveillance tapes. But who knows? I mean, that could be days from now, and also how much effort is law enforcement going to put into this if they recover the motorcycle, and maybe they're just going to say, okay, we're going to wait for whoever to come and claim it. And if not, then, it's their loss. But right now we do see law enforcement, but we haven't seen anybody making an effort to go into the building. So possibly they're getting the message that to the ground, to the units on the ground, it's not worth the chase. This person basically is now probably off the bike, and this has, come to the public. The safety of the public is now safe. So maybe that's what's going on. But as far as LAPD, they are nearby, but I've yet to actually see any of them make an effort to get inside that building.
At approximately 1:05 p.m., the suspect turned into an underground parking garage at a large apartment complex near Figueroa Street and Sunset Boulevard. Several patrol cars were seen surrounding the building searching for the suspect. However, no further information was available regarding the suspect's arrest.